One of the real deficits in accurately managing the trauma that comes from a lot of people's varied spiritual experiences has been there's not really any definitive clinical tools that help us screen for what's kind of normal trauma that just happens from all of our interactions with people groups, not necessarily church or religious trauma, but just life, and what are clinically significant degrees of trauma that probably warrant some kind of intervention. Enter Dan Koch. Dan Koch is a doctoral psychology student at Northwest University who has put together a phenomenal screening tool, which is the Spiritual Harm and Abuse Scale. From this point forward, I'll just call it the SHAS. The SHAS is a wonderful, clinically valid research tool that's able to help us differentiate between what's normal trauma and what's clinically significant enough that you really could use some intervention, whether that's self-help, whether that's coaching, counseling, or more formalized forms of intervention like clinical therapy. It's great at being able to help us identify the severity of the problem. It's 27 questions using what's called a Likert scale, from not at all to all the time, and 5 different spaces there to choose from. And it gives us a good idea of the severity of what you're experiencing. In addition to giving us a total score, it also provides us sub-scores relevant to different types of spiritually abusive and spiritually harming types of behavior you may have experienced. Some individuals are going to score in the low range, and that's awesome. What that means is that, you probably experienced some, but it likely isn't impacting your functioning all that much, and you're probably good to go just moving right on from where you are. Most of the general population who has not necessarily experienced spiritual abuse are going to fit in that category. Whereas medium and high risk are the ones we want to pay a bit more attention to. If one score comes into the medium risk, that suggests that you probably could use some support, but not necessarily, individual counseling services or anything, or trauma-informed care. Maybe you just would benefit from being part of some groups with other people who are navigating these types of relationships. One of those things we've tried to put together is the Restoring Vibrant Community After Trauma group on the Grace Family Network. That's able to help bring people together and really hash out some of these things in community. It's not super heavy. It's not therapeutic in nature per se, as much as it's therapeutic, but it's not clinical in nature. It's more just brethren getting together and navigating this stuff in community. In that high score category, where there's a high risk of significant harm having occurred because of the spiritual abuse, for those folks, you may want to really consider getting some significant form of help. That could be all kinds of different things. That could be like the SOZO trauma recovery and healing programs that are out there that I think Bethel puts out. It could be other forms of similar spiritual interventions of that type. It could also be formal trauma therapy with a trauma therapist. There's lots of different options. And so what we encourage you to do is to take the SHAS evaluation, the screener. It does not diagnose. It's not there to, serve in place of a clinician, but it does give us a pretty good idea of what we might want to investigate further. So take that, see your score, and then if it's in the low range, you're probably good to go. If it's in the medium range, might want to make sure you're connected with some good positive support groups, not necessarily support groups, but just groups of support. All kinds of those exist in our communities, on social media. Many of those that our other Restoring Vibrant community speakers run and are part of. Catherine's group's a great one to participate in. She has lots of great content and interactions on social media. Lila's Grace Family Community is awesome. Lots of great things to tap into out there that would fit that medium category. And if it comes in the high range, you might want to reach out to us and see if we can get you connected with somebody that can provide some additional support. Depending on where you live, we can try to help you out with finding someone who would take your insurance theoretically, if you want to see a professional counselor, or if maybe you want some coaching services. There are some other good folks, including some of us, that we can hopefully get you connected with. So take the screener, check out your results, and if you have any questions, shoot me an email anytime at drmatt@ noexceptionsministries.org. Take care.